Smoak.
Former Baylor star quarterback and also Baylor Radio Color Analyst J.J. Joe with us. Paul, how far back did you go back to the days of like reel to reel and find that the old
almost? Then I found a highlight of the 1992 Sun Bowl. Most of JJ's highlights that are on YouTube don't have audio to them, so they don't really do us any good. There were, like, I watched today, and it really put me behind, like, a 12-minute video of JJ scoring touchdowns with no audio.
No audio.
But
JJ,
I needed one that said his name.
You and I played so far back. You played, I didn't. I watched. that they almost don't have that video anymore, do they? It's got to go back into the archives. What's that like when you hear one of the highlights of yourself?
Hey, man, I remember when, I think sometimes we'd have, I'm trying to think, it was a couple guys from the 60s that would come. So that's how I feel. I remember the feeling like these guys from the 60s would show up, and we'd be like, who is that guy, right? Yeah, so I'm there now. You know what I mean? That's where I am. Hey, it's okay. That means I'm still living. That's a good thing.
It means there were highlights. That's the good news as well. And there were.
Exactly.
What are your expectations of Blake Shapen and what you expect from him early in the year?
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Blake, I almost look at him as like a veteran now. It's funny. And he didn't play a lot of games. So I kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit because, he played a little last year, some of the high leverage moments. So that's good. Now he has to know what it is to be the starter. I remember when I got to play a little bit in my first year, my redshirt freshman year, and then I came back the next year and had to be the starter. And it's a different mentality when you come in, even though he started a couple games. It now requires you to know and learn how to manage a football game and look at it over the course of the long haul versus, hey, I got 3 games left or 2 games left. I'm in for this period of time. And I think it's just, number one, it's the consistency, which he is pretty accurate with the ball. He seems to take really good care of it. So that should really fall right in his wheelhouse. But it's just managing the team, managing the game, and understanding, hey, I have to be here for 12 games, and you got to play like that.
JJ, the skill position players are all new. Nobody's really logged a whole lot of time. What do you think the learning curve will be for them? Because it has to be a little bit shorter. Now they've got Albany Saturday, but BYU's coming down the road.
Yeah, I wrote, for Ashley yesterday that, like, the wide receivers are on the clock, right? And, for me, the runners, you want the runners. Our runners were special last year. Both those guys, I'm hoping, are going to stick where they are. I'm not sure if you guys heard, but Abram Smith and Treston Ebner were really high-quality backs. And Abram just made play after play after play. So those guys are big, but to me, it's the receivers. When you have a quarterback like Shapen, you got to find a guy or two outside on the edge that will force you to respect the passing game. The loss of Taekwon, Estrada, and then also R.J. Sneed, that's huge. Now, you have Ben Sims, a safety blanket, but trust me, every team in the Big 12 and even BYU is going to say, hey, look, we're going to bracket that guy, number 88, not 88, I'm sorry, but number 8 now, Ben, and we're going to try to keep him from beating us. But we're going to see if those guys on the edge that are all brand new, if they're going to make plays and win a game. So they're on the clock, man, and it's just, in college, you get one preseason game, I call it. It's Albany, no disrespect to Albany, but if they play their best and Baylor plays their best, Baylor should find a way to win this game, and then it's on the Provo, and some guys on the edge are going to have to make plays.
JJ, do you think we'll ever see a defensive line or even a front seven put together as stout as the one that Baylor is going to have this year? I mean, in terms of Baylor historically.
I'm thinking back, man. I remember when I got there in my freshman year, we had a couple of, Santana was on that line, and they were deep, and Jay Fran was on that as a linebacker. And I'm thinking back, I think it was 15 or 16 or 14 when we had Oakman, we had Billings, and we had a few guys that I thought may be really good, but I don't think we had one like this. And you got Cole and TJ and Siaki Ika, and you got also Jackson, who's a transfer in, and you got Gabe Hall, you got Chitty Albonai. I don't want to look past him. He started really coming on. I mean, you got probably, and I may miss a couple guys, but you probably got 5 or 6 guys just looking at the interior that should help you get through a 12-game season, and not only get through, but play at a really high level up front.
JJ, as a quarterback, you hear about those guys who are dynamic pass rushers from the blind side. That's why left tackles make so much money, for mostly quarterbacks are right-handed. What was more of annoyance or maybe made you blink? Pressure that you may know is in the backside or pressure up the middle?
Well, I'm a short guy. I'm 5'11" and a half, right? Shorter than Blake. Blake's, I think, about 6'6'1". I mean, so that up the middle stuff is no fun. I mean, you just can't see. I mean, it's just when they start pushing that pocket in front of you and you're already like 6 foot, it just really it starts decreasing the passing lanes. Because really, when you're that height, and really if you're 6'3" or below, you're looking through passing lanes. So if that center or those guards start getting pushed backwards, it really closes that distance and forces you to kind of want to get out. That tackle, while it is important, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's nothing like getting the blindside hit, and I've had several of them. And once you get hit once, you start looking. It's really that up the middle, that for a quarterback that like Blake, who he'll hold it, but Blake really tries to get the ball out and get it pushed to the right spot. So it's really that up the middle, that really you just can't have when you're sitting there and you're 6 foot tall.
JJ, who's the player that you haven't seen yet that you're most excited to see?
Man, I mean, golly, I mean, it's going to be, for me, I've been kind of wondering defensively. I mean, offensively, of course, the receivers. I hear so much about these young men, about, kind of their talent, like the Hal Presleys, the Seth Joneses, the young player, even the freshman Armani, Winfield. I really want to see Gavin Holmes. I'm really hoping. I know he was behind Monterey. We've seen Monterey a little bit, not in real action. Gavin Holmes, I'm really pulling for Gavin Holmes. He had a really good start. But defensively, I'm interested to see, they flipped Walcott to star and they moved Lorando Johnson to corner. I thought I was going crazy. I was like, am I missing something? Because he really played that Jalen Petrie type role, in a sense, nickel role. So, it's interesting. I'm going to say I'm going to look on the edge. I'm really interested to see how what he looks like, what Monterey looks like in a starting role, what Seth looks like. And I also want to see, I know they have him kind of down the depth chart. I want to see what Gibson and Josh Cameron look like. I mean, those are decent size. I want to see what those guys look like. So really those receivers is really what I'm going to have my eye on.
Where do you think Baylor as a program or a team can be better this year, where they could use some improvement? It's kind of hard to identify that sometimes, right? Because so much is going right and so much is strong, but where do you see a need or potential for improvement?
That's a good one. I think sometimes last year on offense, we really, our defense played really fantastic football last year. I thought on offense sometimes we, I think we got kind of stagnant in some games and didn't put teams away when we had the opportunity to put them away. Maybe our defense got a stop and we just didn't take the ball because, teams stacked up on us and we didn't complete a pass or whatnot. So, I said this in the Oklahoma State game. I guess that was the second one, the championship game in the first half. With Shapen in the game, I told him the math had changed and Oklahoma State did not know what to do, because in the first game they had a certain formula and they were using it on us. We hit one on them. We couldn't hit others consistently, and they won. The second game, that first half, we would have beat them 3-4 touchdowns if Blake wouldn't have got hurt, because the math had changed. So to me, really, for me, what I'm looking for is just, I really want to see us be able to marry a really productive passing game with what I think will be a really dynamic running game. Because I think if that happens with this defense, this team has the opportunity to I don't want to get ahead of myself. They have an opportunity really well this year if these receivers come along. Somebody has to come along. This team has a chance to be better than the one before. But you got to go do it because you lost special players, right? Mm-hmm. You lost Bernard, lost a lot of guys from the league that, probably going to play well. So you got to find those players that step up and start making plays too.
Can you try to describe the difference between, and it's besides the obvious of fall workouts, and things have changed since you played, then that game or two of non-conference, although on occasion Baylor and others might open up with a conference game. And just as it ramps up, what are the differences in those games, in your opinion?
And what you just clear it up for me, Smoak. You mean between
like this one, and then you start the next week. It's Brigham Young, which we know is a big time.
Yeah, I got you.
And then you get into conference.
Oh man, it's night and day. I remember when we played. I think this was my sophomore year. We played UTEP to start the season. And UTEP was, back then, I mean, they're not as solid as they are now. I mean, they're much better now. But we played them, and I think we barely won. I mean, coach didn't want to show anything. So the coaches won't put really much on tape this week that they'll plan on using in Provo. So you got to go out here against Albany, and you got to be dominant, in which defense to keep them from scoring, and then offense has to get points and get off the field by the third quarter. But the first game is really that, hey, let's see what this team looks like in real game action. But then I remember the second game, we went from UTEP to then the defending national champions, Colorado, in Boulder. It's kind of like with Baylor's about to do. They're going to go from Albany to, really solid BYU team in Provo. And the intensity is thousandfold. It's hard to describe in a foreign environment, and the stress that comes. And the funny thing is, I think I heard Coach talk about this, is the stress on the road. Even though you have a lot of veterans there, it's going to stress players who have not been stressed at that level before, specifically on defense, because Petrie just would make that play when you need to make that play. He would get that guy to the ground. Bernard would make that play when you need to make that play. He would get a guy to the ground. And they did that all over. JT Woods would make that interception and make that batted ball. So you got to find those guys who will be able to do it under stress on the road.
JJ, we look forward to it. Mondays just after 5 o'clock with you. Your ability to see the game the way you do as a former player and analyst. Look forward to our Monday meetings or Tuesday meetings with you.
Hey, look forward to it as well, guys. You take care.
JJ Joe, Baylor Radio Color Analyst, with us on Tuesdays just after 5 o'clock throughout the year. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365
and writes for the
Sports.
site as well.
And he wrote a heck of an article. He actually